What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Real Time for the Real Everyday Movie Fan. I'm Josh Williams.
I'm Ryan Murphy.
And I'm James Sheridan.
Thank you so much for joining us here, folks, because we're coming back at you. Happy 2022, by the way. Hopefully this will be a better year than the past 2 years, because the past years have sucked. I'm not going to lie. But we're here with the new year, giving you a new real-time discussion, a real-time roundtable, I should say, of what we think is our top 5 most iconic movie props that are non-weapons. Now, it's hard, that's kind of a mouthful, because when you think of movie props, they can either be a weapon or not. Yep. We're going to do 2 separate videos. We're going to do this one, and then later on, we're going to do one where we do movie props that are weapons. This one, we're going to be focusing more on non-weapons.
Well, just the idea being that, like, my list was way too long at one point. Yeah. And it's like, it's easy to like separate things into weapons and non-weapons. So I just thought that would be an easier way to sort of categorize things. And of course, I get twice as much content out of it. So,
and I agree, because I mean, you could easily make these into 2 separate videos, because there's so many weapons that are props. And there's so many non-weapons. Even then, I had trouble breaking down my list for these non-props, for these non-weapons. And so
I had trouble coming up with 3 non-weapon props.
Really, so I came up with like 20, and I had to get rid of 5. I had to get rid of like way more. I only have 5 honorable mentions in the top 5. Okay. So like I really had to break them, and I actually got rid of some that I figured there's 2 I got rid of that I really wanted on the list, but I knew there was one that Ryan would have on his list. At least he better. If not, we're gonna have real problems. And then there's one on James's list that I know is gonna be on there, so I had to get rid of it. So that way, there's more. We kind of spread out the content. And of course, for everybody watching, we have not seen each other's lists. We're coming at this, of a blank slate. We do not know each other's list, but just because I know James and Ryan, I have a feeling they're going to be on his list. Mm-hmm. Now, before we get to this discussion, everybody, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, so you can receive all of our great content we have coming to you in 2022. Now, who wants to start us off here? Do you guys have any honorable mentions? Let's start us off with that.
I mean, James, we just
James, what about you?
It's gonna be long.
I mean, so many. Like at one point, my list was like 50 items long, and it was like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, there's just so many cool items from movies and TV, and like at one point, I had video games on there. I'm like, I can easily eliminate those because we aren't discussing video games. But it's like, I'd love to have on there like the Buster Sword and like the Gunblade and like the portal gun and the gravity gun from can't remember the name of the series. Anyway, but like there's so many different props and items that you could put on there. And like I'm kind of nervous to mention my honorable mentions, because in case it's on your list of things, because one of them I have a feeling is actually on your list, knowing you and knowing your previous list. So I actually want to skip that one. 2 of the ones that immediately came to mind that I was waffling on whether or not to include, just because they are a little less practical. One would be the Dragon Balls from Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z.
Why did I not think of that one? Holy shit.
I wondered if that would be on your list or not, but like
it wasn't. I completely blanked on it. Holy
of
shit,
course, they're, if you're not familiar with them, they're little round orbs that have like 5-pointed stars on them, varying in numbers from 1 through 7. And when you unite them, you summon a dragon. In the case of the Earth Dragon Balls, it's Shenron the dragon. Yeah. And you get a wish from them. And typically it's, I'm wishing for my friends to come back to life who were murdered by whatever villain was in this arc. But of course, like they are a central part of, especially the first arc of Dragon Ball, and then, continually used as a plot device throughout them. The second, one of the other ones was the Pokeball, which isn't one that, like, again, it's a very specific use case kind of thing, where it's like, it's only really useful in a world where you have Pokemon and you want to trap them and use them for fighting. But it's such an interesting device because, like, they never explain what the technology is, but it's capable of like shrinking an animal, containing it, the object itself is capable of shrinking, and like there seems to be some sort of like AI kind of involved, because like, well, it doesn't speak, like they're.
And also you got to think, because it kind of turns them into like energy and then puts them in the Pokeball. What happens when they're inside? Do they rematerialize as a Pokemon?
Yeah, are they like digital energy or something? Or
Who
Yeah,
knows?
and like
real quick, James, you
Yeah.
forgot. I mean, Shenron is of course the most iconic of the Dragon Ball Z dragons at Grand Sorcerer, but you forgot Purunga from Planet Namek, who are the other ones.
Well, the point
That
is the
grants
Dragon
the
Ball
three
summon a
levels.
dragon. That's what they do.
Well, you have
Yeah.
the smaller ones and you have the bigger ones. It's
Yes.
just you gotta be if you're gonna go with it, you're gonna go nerd with it. Okay.
You got smaller balls.
See,
and you got
I'm
bigger
not
balls.
as into Dragon Ball, but of course, like they're such iconic
Yeah. They are.
props, and like so like part of my approach to all this was wondering like what would look cool on the shelf or like hang on my wall kind of thing.
Mhm.
Not just stuff I love, but like what would be cool to display. And it's like having the Dragon Balls in like a little wooden case on your bookshelf kind of thing would be really kind of badass.
Next to a
and, like,
Pokeball.
Pokeball's a little harder to display, but like it's such a cool concept of a device and
Mhm.
so unique to its own universe kind of thing. Where like a lot of these other things that like there's sort of similar things in other universes, but like Pokeball is very specific and unique. Another one which is probably going to shock some people that's on my honorable mentions and not on my actual list are Spider-Man's web shooters.
The what? Oh,
Spider-Man's web shooters,
Okay.
which
Now
people
here's.
could-
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was gonna say now. You could make the argument that they're a weapon, but they could be nectar that they're not. So this is one of those ones that I'm glad you bring this up because this is one of those gray area ones.
Mhm.
And I have one on my list that is a gray area one as well, and we'll discuss it. But go ahead, James.
See, I would argue, intent is kind of an important part of why. Like,
Yeah.
yes, they are definitely used for combative purposes, but they're sort of like non-lethal combative purposes.
Right.
Depending on the incarnation of Spider-Man, because of course in the video game he's just freely webbing people off of buildings and they just kind of disappear into the ether, presumably dying.
Or just swinging himself. You don't
Or
have to.
swinging like and like again, it's another object where it's like it's a really cool object, but other than like if you don't have spider powers, is it really that useful of an object kind of thing? Because like sure, I could like grab my Coke can from across the room, but then I've got to wait 2 hours for that web to now dissolve. And it's like it's really cool because it's the design of them is cool, and like the idea of it being like this web mounted, like kind of wrist mounted device, and he's got like replaceable cartridges that
Or you could just
vary
be like
in
Toby
design and
and it's
whatnot.
just it could be like Toby and it's just in your blood and
Yeah.
comes out of you.
I hate
I'm
that
just
plot
kidding.
device. I really like. I love the mechanical web shooters just because of
So
their
does it come
history
out
and
of does it come out of any other part of your body?
Yep.
yeah, that was a
go
great
ahead.
little
Yeah, that's funny.
yeah. So like, and I waffled on whether or not to include it, but the three that I've included as my like major three are basically like ones I would like really like to have kind of thing, whereas the rest of these are sort of
Right.
like kind of cool. And I mean, like there's all kinds of different like Harry Potter's wands, Harry Potter's
Mhm.
um
That's what I had as
brooms
a
kind of thing.
that's what I had as a runner up was Harry Potter's wands.
Yeah,
But
to
they
me,
have those for sale like Barnes and Noble, but are they like really wood or are they plastic?
yeah, that's the thing.
I
Is
don't
like I
know.
was thinking like that would be a cool one to have on my shelf,
Mhm.
but it's like I'd want like an actual wooden one, like one that's like
Yeah.
hand carved and
I want to know
Like,
that it's
nicely
made from the
designed.
same kind of wood they say it's made of in the book. That's what I want to like. If it's like Voldemort's wand is made out of yew, so I want to know if I get Voldemort's wand that's made out of real yew.
Yeah.
And
And you
others
also
are-
got to wonder which one of those is like I would argue like the Elder Wand is probably the most iconic out of all of them because it has the most history.
and it's funny because that's the one I'd least like to have because I don't like the design of it kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
I'd want like just a regular, ordinary sort of like one that's stylistic and not just
Right.
like
Mhm.
a bland wood handle kind of thing, but like some character to it kind of thing.
Mhm.
But like I don't know, it's not one that I've looked into getting. Whereas like some of the other props, especially my weapon props, are ones that I've definitely looked into getting, but I'm
Right.
excluding those for now simply because they don't fit this list. And again, a wand is something that can fit into either one because it is an offensive weapon. It is,
Yeah.
depending on the user, intended to kill. Avada Kedavra being a very famous, spell that kills
Kills
instantly.
people.
So it's like
Oh, yeah.
it can't be used as like an everyday thing for just like stirring your tea or walking the dog. Like we've seen it used for all kinds of use cases and probably has the most versatility of anything we're going to mention.
Mhm.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So
I mean, give
Yeah,
or take, but like
what
it's
about-
still it's still cool. And like the brooms again, like that one borders on sort of like vehicle kind of thing, but like
Yeah.
That
for the
is-
purpose,
to me, that's
for
a
the purpose of
vehicle.
this list, I'm including it as not a vehicle because it's an object that you can carry, and to me, a prop is like an object you can carry. Like I could put the wand on my wall, or I could put the broom on my wall. I can't put a DeLorean on my wall, kind of thing.
So
Like,
you could put the hoverboard on your wall.
Ooh,
we'll get
is
there.
that one? Yeah. Do you have any more honorable mentions, James?
I mean, I'm sure we'll think of some along the way.
Mhm.
What else is on my list? Oh, the One Ring, which again could be weapon, could be non-weapon.
That's not your top. That's not your top ones, right?
No,
just
that's
one-
just
yeah.
like ones that I've thought of while
Yeah.
I'm like looking up this list. The board from Jumanji, which
Okay.
Man, you're just gonna you're gonna take over the whole list, man. You're taking off some of my honorable mentions already.
I'm sorry,
Well,
I
what
just
are,
like
he's doing his
I
honorable
sat there and I
mentions. What are some of-
literally like
we
I was
already
thinking-
said that the only one I had was the Harry Potter wand. So what are some of your honorable mentions,
For
Josh?
me, I was when I was picking up my list, I was thinking of my personal, but also just what's iconic for cinema. What has been like kind of stood the time again when you see it, kind of what we talked about with vehicles. When you see it, you know what it is. It kind of maybe sometimes transcends its own cinema. And some of these are for cinema nerds that would only know when they see it. So for me, I got the origami unicorn from Blade Runner. To me, that's just a very popular, iconic little prop that it has great meaning for the film itself. Another one I got the Jumanji board. I could not leave it off my list. That's just, I mean, they even have them. You can buy them now, but they're like $175, but it'd be cool to have.
Yeah.
Another one for me, I got Rosebud from Citizen Kane.
Which could be argued to be a vehicle,
It could, arguably could be a vehicle.
but it's not. It's really not.
I mean, it could. I mean, it's a sled. I mean,
Yeah.
but within the
ride it.
context of the movie, it's treated as an object of desire, not just like
yeah, it is. Yeah.
a vehicle. Like he rides it a couple times, but it's about it being an object, about it being something he wants. So like
Yeah.
I would argue that it's prop more.
Way
than
to
a
spoil Citizen Kane, guys.
vehicle.
Ah,
The
right?
film's like 80 years old at this point. Who cares?
It could almost be public domain now, couldn't it?
I
doubt
don't know.
that.
I don't think it'd be copyrighted.
Mickey Mouse
anymore.
is still not public domain, so let's not.
Winnie
go
the
there.
Pooh is now public domain.
Oh shit.
Wow, that's
Yep,
cool.
just happened like 2 days ago.
Okay.
Wow. Next one, we're kind of revisiting the Harry Potter. Well, so when I thought of Harry Potter, one of the ones I thought was iconic was the Golden Snitch, which
Mhm.
played a huge role in the show throughout
Yeah.
the whole show. And I thought that was a really great one to kind of bring up. And the last one, like I said, only cinephiles will know this one when you say it, but the Maltese Falcon, it has such a huge, rich history within cinema. And I feel like it's one that kind of deserves to be brought up. It's not one of my personal. Some people would argue it's one of the most important movie props of film history, but it's something you have to bring up. It's not personal to me, so it can't be on my list, but it's still just as iconic as anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, if I walk into a cinephile's house and they had a bunch of collectibles around, I'd say, "Oh, look, there's the Maltese Falcon." I know what it is because of that. Otherwise,
I think most people would know what it is. Like
Yeah.
anyone of like our caliber of like cinephile would understand what it
yeah.
is, but it's not like something that, I'm not going to
And-
buy it as a paperweight for my desk kind of thing. It's not an object that I have a personal attachment to, and apparently
And it's
neither
even
does Josh.
also,
But
it's kind of weirdly enough, not once they transcend this film, but like the actual prop from this movie, there's this legend it's kind of the aura around this object has even gone outside in real world, because there's people who are suggesting that the actual prop is not the actual prop from the movie. That's been because someone sold the actual prop for like millions of dollars, and then there's this thing going around that it's actually a fake and it's not the real one. So it's kind of that whole idea still from the movie is gone out into the real one. That's kind of just a fun little thing that I found out. But those are my honorable mentions. There's quite a few more I took off that I didn't want to. That I figured we were kind of crunched for time. I actually scratched quite a few off the list. And again, there's two that I took off purposely because I'm hoping you two will bring them up. At least you better.
I mean, we
but-
can mention other ones. Like, I mean, with the car one, we kept thinking of more than that
yeah.
as we went on, and like,
Well,
I'm sure
I mean,
we'll
okay,
think of
so
other
if you
ones.
want to bring up some other ones real fast, then The Heart of the Ocean from Titanic. That
Yeah.
is a beautiful piece of movie prop history.
I was thinking of Marcellus Wallace's briefcase from Pulp Fiction.
Oh yeah,
which
that's a great
hugely
one. Oh, that's
iconic.
such a good one. That's a deep
Yeah.
cut right there. That's a great one.
And again, like the Maltese Falcon, it's one of those MacGuffin sort of
Yeah.
props.
Oh.
It's so central to the story that like, but
And
it's
even-
it's like an object of nothing. Like it's just a briefcase, and we have no
And I-
idea what's inside of it.
And
People
that's what I love
theorize
about
about that, and it's fun in that aspect. But it's just a briefcase.
today. It's
and yet
still
it's so
discussed
iconic.
of what's in there too. Today you
Yeah.
can still talk about what's in there. That's so great. Wilson, of course, from Castaway. It's just a fun one to bring up because I mean, you look at it and you're like, oh, hey, it's Wilson. Like, I mean, especially if you're, I mean, maybe not younger generation, but like our generation and older, they would easily know what it is.
And on that
And-
note, sort of like any of the artifacts from Indiana Jones,
Yep.
like any number of them, like the
Oh, God,
head
yeah.
that he goes after at the beginning, the Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant. Like
Again, if I
all
was
kinds
walking
of
into
them.
like a big cinephile's house, like with a bunch of movie memorabilia, I'd expect to see the Maltese Falcon and the Idol from the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah,
Yeah. And the
you
last
know,
one's just
probably
more
the
for me.
stones from Temple of Doom.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
The
the
last
Ark of the
one-
Covenant and the Holy Grail are literally like arguably real objects, depending on what you believe, but like have actually like, are based
But in
on
terms
what-
of like filmic props, they
Yeah.
themselves are iconic unto them.
Like-
Like the image of those
Oh, yeah.
from those movies.
if you were to
specifically
see,
iconic.
like we have like in my church, like the actual image of like the angels with their wings pointed towards each other, because that's how it's described in the Bible.
Yeah.
People see that and they might walk into that church and be like, hey, they got the Raiders of the Lost Ark thing going on there. Why do they have that prop there in the church? I'm like, you idiot.
And the last one's
And
really
the crystal
small,
skull.
and it can really be. Oh, the crystal. Yeah. Ryan doesn't want to talk
Photos
about
for
that
Ryan.
one. Ryan doesn't want to talk about that.
Yeah, let's
one
go
does.
let's go into the weapons show and start talking about Kylo Ren's lightsaber.
Oh, God. But the last one for me, guys, is just it's a small one, and actually it's take place for 2 movies. But the one I'm the red balloon from It, but it also could be the red balloon from the film The Red Balloon. But I'm going.
It's a
for
red
It.
balloon. Look, I have a red balloon.
Exactly. That's
But
not, oh, that's-
it's again iconic. You see a red balloon, and a lot of people, especially with the more recent It, you immediately remember like that scene.
Mhm.
yeah, exactly. Especially if you have like I Love Dairy on it, that definitely will bring it to home for you.
Yes, if you have a red balloon that says "I love dairy" on it, now we're talking a little bit more specifically.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say if I see a red balloon, I'm like, ah!
But Ryan, do you have any honorable
No,
mentions?
I told you I had a really hard time thinking of anything. So I got my top 3, and then I thought of Harry Potter ones as like an extra. I didn't even think of the brooms. You just mentioned the brooms, and I was like, okay. So
well,
we can go right
so
to
you
our
only
top.
have. You said you only have 3, then, right?
Yeah,
Okay, Ryan, James, you have 3, or do you have 5?
I boiled it down to 3.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I went 5. My bad. So,
well, go ahead and talk about your other
Yeah,
2
you
as
start, you'll
runner-ups.
So the other 2, then, for my, I should have went number.
We do
3,
our
sorry.
research before we do these things, guys. We talk, we collaborate, we sit down and have discussions.
Yeah, no, we
No,
don't.
part of the enjoyment of this is the surprise of like what's
Yeah,
going to be
exactly.
on everybody's
That's-
list. Like,
Yeah, but okay.
But
just-
see, I had hoped that you guys would do some research beforehand. I mean,
what are your 4 and 5?
so my 5 and 4.
I
so
definitely did
remember-
research.
Yeah, me too. My 5 and 4, I have the Golden Ticket from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good one.
That's a real good. And like I was thinking about just props, and I kept thinking, all of a sudden, just a ticket popped in my head, and I was like, the Golden Ticket. Okay, cool. And so like that's one. It's just I would love to see that in someone's house, like especially if like it was like in a plastic, even though it's not a real one, like just to help keep it nice and neat. Like you'd have a golden ticket in like a plastic, case or something like that on someone's. I would have that as one of the props for my set behind me or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it's such a beautiful piece of movie memorabilia, movie history, and it brings sort of a child, the inner child of you out, because it's such a beautiful, like a fun feeling someone's had when they got the golden ticket. You know what I mean? Like it's something like it instantly brings you back to memories of your own, like when you got something you really, really wanted that you were trying to open and you got,
And
you know what I mean?
It's
Like, for
become
me-
such a iconic shorthand for, an object that you win. Like it's almost like a holy grail type of shorthand
Exactly.
of like the golden ticket. Like, I mean, they did an entire episode of The Office where he put golden tickets into paper boxes and whatnot and screwed the company, but then saved the company accident. Like, you say golden ticket, a lot of people will immediately think of like we understand what it means, but it's like
Exactly.
it's become shorthand beyond the movie itself.
Exactly, because when I was saying that feeling, like when like a kid when they're trying to open up something to win a prize that they really want, it kind of bring the idea of the golden ticket brings back to my childhood when I was. Do you guys ever remember back in I would say the late 90s or maybe early 2000s is when the Burger King released these big Pokeballs that had these gold-plated Pokemon that there was like 5 or 6 that you never knew what you were going to get. You had to go around and get them. I remember my Aunt Di, we went around to every Burger King in Des Moines and we hunted for every single one until I got all 5 of them. Like I came out with multiple extras, don't get me wrong. And I wish now I would have kept them because those things are expensive. Like you can
Actually, I don't
hard.
think they're worth very much.
No, I checked on like eBay. Some people are paying money for them.
How much? Like what kind of money? Because
I think I saw one of them, like the Mewtwo and Charizard, for like 1,200.
really, okay, that's
I mean, I have to
interesting
double
because
check.
that's like
I'll have to double check
1200 is like, Gem Mint 9, Gem Mint 10, sealed, graded kind of like
yeah, I have to double check for
Charizard
sure,
type
but
money.
yeah.
All right,
I had-
nerds.
So that's the my number 5. For my number 4, you brought it up. I have the One Ring.
Yeah.
Okay.
To me, that's just that in itself, like it speaks for itself. I mean, it's been around even since the books, and when it's actually brought to life by Peter Jackson, it was such a beautiful piece of jewelry and prop.
I mean, it's literally a gold band, unless you
But-
add the Elvish writing on it.
Well, yeah,
which
the Elvish. To me, that's
some-
what you think of it as the Elvish writing. But also, what I loved is that there were so many different props of the One Ring. They had a huge one, they had the
Mhm.
smaller ones, and there were many different types in the for the film, and that's just a really iconic piece that will still
Wow.
forever.
I think they
talk
had an
about.
entire department devoted just to that ring. Like usually you have a prop department, but I think they had just one section of that department devoted only to various sizes of the ring.
Yep, for filmmaking purposes, yeah.
Yeah.
But well, Ryan's been waiting patiently for his 3. Well, Ryan, why don't you go to number 3, and we'll go James and me.
My number 3 is just the Star Trek badges from Star Trek: The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine,
okay.
and Voyager.
Those are good.
Which I'd love to get one that you can actually hit and then makes the chirp sound. Obviously, they don't really work as like cell phones or walkie-talkies like they do in the show. But just be able to make the sound effect. You hit it, and then you say Riker to Picard. But that's all. Just really cool. Something
Beam
you
me
can
up,
pin onto your
Scotty.
clothing.
I mean, I don't think it would-
not in the original series. They didn't have the badges in the original series.
They did.
only-
That's right. My bad. You're right.
Yeah, they had communicators. They had to flip
the
open
flip
like
phone.
the
Yeah.
flip phone in the original series. And the Next Generation, they updated it so where their badges are the actual communicators, and you just hit it. And so,
Thinking about it, it probably wouldn't be difficult to add some sort of Bluetooth like touch device or microphone to it to like connect to your phone where you just tap it in like,
Hey, man,
Siri,
leave it up to
call Dad
someone.
or something. Like
why hasn't someone invented that yet? Then let's see
I
it.
don't
Let's
know
see it,
if I-
nerds.
Yeah, come on, nerds, build it for us. Let's do it.
I said, "Hey Siri," and my phone just piped up.
I mean, we can have it. Why won't they make it? Like you do have Siri, you can say to like, or they used to have, or maybe it's Alexa, or one of them will actually do say like, if you say tea Earl Grey hot, she'll make a sound effect, or she'll do something, or she say beam me up, she'll make the transporter. I think it's Alexa. I'm not sure, but yeah. So that's all. Not very
I'm
complicated.
sure some nerd is working on that somewhere. Like,
Yeah.
you're telling me Star Trek nerds haven't tried to invent that?
Yeah.
Like, someone out there is doing it. Like, I know there's a guy.
And
on
who
TikTok
makes
who's
society
actually-
who moves society forward in terms of technology? Star Trek nerds, the Big Bang
I mean, a
Theory
lot of them
nerds.
ended up in NASA. So
Yeah,
that's-
exactly. That's a
yeah.
lot of the technology we have today is like made by nerds who grew up watching Star Trek and wanted like Star Trek's kind of, we take it out of the zeitgeist. Maybe you get like It's a Wonderful Life of Star Trek. You take Star Trek out of the zeitgeist and we're in the zombie apocalypse or something. Who knows? Like we wouldn't have smartphones or something.
Yeah. And while I didn't like the idea of all the rich people going to space like they have been, it was really cool that William Shatner got to. I thought that was really a cool little thing for the Star Trek nerds to have.
Yeah.
But James, what's your number 3?
I mean, we've already sort of alluded to it, but and again, could be argued as an actual vehicle, but it's ding.
We already,
Hoverboard.
The hoverboard from Back to the Future. Again, I'm qualifying as a prop because for the most part in the movies, it's carried by hand.
Mhm.
Couple scenes it's used as an actual object of
Vehicle,
travel
yeah.
and whatnot, but for the most part it's a handheld device, and to me that makes it a prop, and it's something that I can mount on the wall. Of course, the where are my notes? The hoverboard was the one that, like, this version of it that's used in the actual movie is apparently a Mattel augmented scooter where Marty famously rips off the handles and uses it as a regular skateboard. It's uses maglev technology, kind of utilizing the magnetic force of the earth and kind of like
Mhm.
negating that and sort of balancing off of that. Of course, this technology was, according to the book that I have, was limited in its use of scale. So it's actually different from the hover technology that they use in the vehicles. And that, according to the book, this was a weird little anecdote they added in that I thought was amusing. The popularity of the hoverboards in the early 20th century or 21st century helped decrease obesity in children and teenagers because they wanted to be you weren't cool unless you could fit onto a hoverboard. So everyone stayed thin to stay on to be able to use hoverboards.
Wow.
Weird anecdote. I don't know why they put that
Yeah.
in. I found it amusing, but like, I mean, like it was one of the coolest things when I was a kid to see the hoverboard in Back to the Future, and it's like everybody wanted one. And I'm not talking about those like ridiculous two-wheeled things that you've seen, like so many TikTok compilations of grandma falling and hurting her hip on Christmas Day because nobody knows how to ride those damn things. I'm talking about an actual maglev hoverboard that actually like floats. It doesn't actually float, but I mean, you know what? Within the magic of the movie, it floats. It's such a cool concept of like a futuristic skateboard, and the possibilities of it were just seemingly endless. And like everyone I know wanted one. Like we made them out of wood. We even put them on the strap. Some people like nailed a shoe to it so they could fit onto it better. And like it was just one of the coolest toys. And or one of the coolest things that everybody wanted. And like when 2015 rolled around and like they didn't exist, everyone was kind of like, but like, where's my hover technology?
I remember I was the one who was posted on Facebook like, wait, where's my flying car? Where's my hoverboard?
Yeah,
that was such a huge thing. When
pizza?
When that day came, that was like all anybody was talking about. It was all anyone was talking about leading up to the day. But that whole day, I think it was Christmas. Everyone was just talking about like what day it is. You walk into class. I was in college at the time, and it was like,
which is funny because like every year before that, someone would like post a false image of the time circuits on there with like that week's date or that year's date or something, saying this was the year they went to the future. And it's like, did no one watch the fucking movie? Like that's no, 2012 was not the date. 2016 was not the date. 2008 or 2008 was not the date.
Yeah, if you don't give me the flying cars, or at least give me my power lace sneakers, my power lace Nikes, man. I mean, didn't they?
They did come out with it didn't power lace. I think someone did augment one to be power lacing, but the one that actually Nike did put out a limited series. I think it was like a 200 car shoe run or something.
Yeah.
They also put out the Pepsi free bottles twice. Once at a convention and once at like, I don't know how you got one, but it was again such in limited numbers that it's almost next to impossible to find. The one I wanted from Back to the Future 2 was the pizza machine, where you just buy the little tiny pizzas, you put them in there, and it's like a fully, cooked pizza in like 10 seconds. It's like why do we not have that technology? Instant pizza, come on.
Hydrated pizza.
Yeah.
That's a good one. All right, so coming in with my number 3, this one, it should be a no-brainer. I got the ruby slippers from Wizard of Oz. Those things,
you'd look good in those, Josh.
I would look really good in those, but I mean, it's just ones that I remember when they came out so long ago. They still have been around to this day. Like families are introducing their children to that movie, and the ruby slippers are still one of the things that always stand out to everybody. I mean, when my daughter hasn't seen Wizard of Oz yet, but when I do eventually show it to her, I'm sure I'll have to go out and buy some ruby slippers for her, which I'm perfectly fine with. I mean, she would look beautiful in them. But yeah, these are just so iconic within the film history that you can't ignore. That has to be on someone's list. And I have a feeling that maybe or maybe not, it wouldn't be on your guys's. But again, just the idea of, it takes you to and from these, from the real world to this magical world. Or you could say she was hallucinating the whole time. It really depends on your point of view for the Wizard of Oz. But either way, I had to put them on the list. And
Wizard of Oz was one of those like iconic films of my childhood again, where it's like that one like shaped me. To Return to Oz a little bit more because I actually discovered that one first, which no one remembers that film, but I actually really like that film.
I watched it when I was a kid. But...
to me, it's sort of like visually the better depiction of Oz. But fun fact about that.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Fun fact about the ruby slippers: they're actually supposed to be silver. The reason they're ruby is because they wanted to take advantage of the Technicolor technology at the time, so they changed them to red so that they would pop a little more on screen. And people have written like entire like essays about how like the red color of them is sort of like representative of like female puberty and like the change that Dorothy's going through like it's supposed to be iconic and representative of the changes she's going through as a young teenager kind of thing. And it's like, no, but sure.
And I hope, like, because me and my wife, we actually got a chance to go to, there's a movie theater in Des Moines called the Floor Cinema, which shows a lot of independent films. Me and my wife, when we lived there a few years back, we got the privilege of going to see The Wizard of Oz in a theater, which was just so amazing and special. Like, I hope when my daughter gets old enough, they might re-release it like in some small theater. I'd take her to go see it, because it's different than seeing. I think anybody can agree that going to see a movie in the theater is so much different than seeing it just at home. And revisiting something that you've already seen and seen in the theater, just it added more to it. And seeing those ruby slippers on a big screen was really something special to see. But let's go ahead.
They're very iconic, and they've like apparently that they've been like their actual versions of itself are like ridiculous amounts of money,
right?
At auctions. A pair of it were actually stolen. Weird little side venture that I think people would find interesting. I'm on the wiki looking at this because I wanted to find like how much they actually sold for, but this caught me off guard. Apparently the Super Mario Brothers movie was written as a like reinterpretation of the Wizard of Oz, and their stomp boots are supposed to be the ruby slippers.
Oh God.
Didn't know that. Weird fact. Thought it would be fun to share. So
that is an interesting little fact.
Little left field, but
Ryan, why don't you go ahead with your number 2?
My number 2 is Batman's grappling hook, which is the one I thought, like, I don't know what these guys are on me about. Like, I'm thinking about movie props. I can't think of anything. I think of weapons. I want weapons. I want swords. I want guns. I don't, what am I supposed to, and then I just popped in my head, like, Batman's grappling hook. Like, fuck, I got him on this now. And then I later thought of Harry Potter's one. I'm like, okay. But as soon as I thought of that, I was like, yeah, obviously there's been about 7 iterations of Batman, but the ones that, like, I think people actually can think of and picture in their head for the most part, is in terms of the actual physical gun, is the Michael Keaton's and Christian Bale's. Because like I remember the image of the grappling hook sliding into his belt, which doesn't make any sense. Like, what does he push a button and it slides over onto his front side or something? It was weird. But I remember what that looks like, and I remember what Christian Bale's looked like when Morgan Freeman brought it out and showcased it. Gas powered magnetic grappling gun, so those are the 2 that really are memorable to me and that I would like to have on my wall. I doubt they ever actually worked, and I never understood the whole logic behind grappling hooks. Like, is there always going to be something to grapple onto? That's the way they act in Batman. Like, you shoot it up on a wall and you'll swing on it or you'll repel up it. It's like, no, like
that's what, like,
magically wraps around anything that's present,
And that's the other thing too. Does he have like an unlimited amount of, like, does the wire retract, or does it, like, you take it off, and then if it does, how many wires does he have to reload? You know what I mean?
And by the way, the other one that I always remember exactly what the gun looks like but it's not real. It's not physically real, is the animated series one.
I was gonna say the one that whenever people say the Batman grappling hook, I immediately think of Mallrats.
Oh geez.
Because they use the Keaton style gun, and there's an entire scene about them grappling with it, and like the entire like Batman motif that they try and give Silent Bob, and
James.
Just immediately I went. It's a fun movie. I don't know why people hate that movie so much.
So yeah, that's a really good one. James, what about you, man? What's your number 2?
This one I might get some flack for because technically it's an automaton and not a prop, but it is a prop, and that's my favorite character from all of Star Wars.
R2.
Yeah, you might get some flack for that. That's a character, man.
It's a character, but it's also an object, and they are props in terms of like the functionality on set, and like you can actually own one.
You can own one and put your toddler in it as child abuse.
People have built. I mean, they put Kenny Baker in them, so
yeah,
toddler would fit just fine. But
exactly.
To me, the like R2-D2 was always my favorite character. I love the idea of Astromechs. They're basically like a Swiss Army knife, like sentient Swiss Army knife in the Star Wars universe. They're of course manufactured by Industrial Automaton. Like there's a whole line of different Astromechs, of course, BB-8 being one of them little soccer ball sphere type ones. But for me, it was always about the 3-legged R series, specifically the R2 series, with the domed head as opposed to the pointed head. I just think, like, again, iconic.
Now, when you say pointed head, do you talk about like the flat and then it's kind of round? Because they had those too.
Well, come on, Red, let's go.
It's like conical ones. So that like there's R5, there's R6, there's the R1s, which are even like bigger and chunkier kind of things.
Yeah.
Whereas like the R2 series, I think, is where they kind of like got the mold perfect. And of course, how many times did R2 save the butts of everybody? How many times was he the hero? And like, one of the cooler parts of Astromechs is not only are they like they're designed to be ship repairmen that can go out and just like zero G hang on the side of the ship and repair external aspects of it, because obviously you can't do that as a human being, especially when you're going, in hyperspace and whatnot. But one of the other really cool aspects of it, and this ties back into our vehicle discussion where I brought up the X-Wing, is that astromechs are used as navigators and sort of like the nav computer to like plot courses. So
yeah, we saw that
and
when
of course,
when R2 helped him locate Dagobah and stuff like that, like with Luke and
or
everything.
like how many times did like he plug in and like hack into something, basically becoming a slicer in universe kind of thing, and like the usage for these things is just fundamental. Plus the personality of this little quirky droid who he's like a stubborn little dog that won't pay attention, but is like one of the most heartbreaking aspects that's people kind of pointed out the last couple of years is that within the original trilogy, R2 is constantly being told to stay by the ship and he doesn't do it. But when you watch Revenge of the Sith, you see that Anakin told him to wait by the ship. He did, and Anakin never came back.
Yeah.
Meaning that he's learned that I have to stay with you because you stupid humans are not coming back if I don't stay with you.
That's a good point. I never thought about that. Wow.
It's heartbreaking when you think about it, but it's like, I love that sort of like level of loyalty that a droid, because again, he feels like a dog to me.
And I know we're going off on a tangent here, but I just thought of something I have to ask. So why was it? I mean, maybe there could be reasons, but I wonder why they introduced that he has like rockets that help him fly in the prequels, but you never see them in the originals or in the new trilogy. Like you don't see him ever use those again. That's
been a point of issue for a lot of people for a long time.
Yeah.
My theory.
I remember episode 2 coming out, which is 20 years ago this year, by the way, and watching that and thinking, yeah, George, what's that all about? And everyone's like, George, what's that all about? And
except that in a lot of the fiction around that time, they said that our astromech units, in fact, R2 in some of the EU books has rocket boosters. So for me, that was a cool aspect of seeing him, like seeing that aspect of him realize. My sort of headcanon is that because they're sort of like a Swiss Army knife type thing, and because they're sort of like more complicated than the Swiss Army knife, you can swap out all the tools in it. So at that time, he may have had rocket boosters, but because he may not have needed them at other times, they may have put something else in there that was more useful to him, swapping out parts for some other reason. Because of course, part of the lore of R2 and 3PO, but if you like me grew up on the original animated series droids, they're supposed to have kind of like gone from person to person to person in exchange, like had like this whole history in between movies. Of course, that's been ruined by episode 3, but like there's very clearly an idea that they haven't always been with the same person, because of course R2 went from Padme to Anakin to Captain Antilles to the Jawas to Luke, and it's like any time in there, any one of them could have decided, I want to put in a different device in there. Again, I don't have any proof that that's actually canon. That's just been my head canon, but like I think it's a reasonable reason why he would have it in one movie and not in others. The practical solution being that was CG, and we can't make an actual robot fly like that in the traditional movies kind of thing. So
right. Great one. That's a really great one. So moving on to my number 2, I had trouble with what was gonna be my number 1 and 2, because these could really be interchanged out. So these are really just tied for first in my opinion. But for me, for number 2, I have the leg lamp from A Christmas Story.
I thought about putting this on my list.
So
I can understand that as a runner-up you have to bring up, but like, is that really like number 2, like tied for number 1 material? I mean, okay. Again, you walk into someone who's a real cinephile's house, you see the Maltese Falcon, you'll see the idol from Raiders, and you might see the leg lamp. But I mean,
if I walk into someone's house and I see they've got the leg lamp, I'm like, you and I are instantly friends because you have good taste in movies.
I've just never been a big Christmas Story guy. My mom hates that movie so much that we weren't raised on it. She still hates it to this day. Her mom hates It's a Wonderful Life. So they have 2 generations of just
those are the 2 best movies to watch at Christmas.
I know, right?
So take it up with the women of the Mitchell family. But
oh man, that's sad.
It's a lamp. It's a thing. So
but it's such an iconic.
It's iconic.
When I was making my list,
that must be Italian.
When I was making my list, I had to think of what was iconic in the realm of film, but also personal to me. You know what I mean? Like this one, Christmas Story is my all-time favorite Christmas movie. It always will be. I watch it every day, at least Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I watch it at least 3 or 4 times, give or take. And it drives my wife crazy, but I can't help it. I love the movie so much. And
The only reason
lamp,
I don't watch it every year is because it was on TBS for so long, all day long, and it's like got a little sick of it, but it's so good as a movie.
it's so.
I mean, I'm
good
still
as a
not
movie.
100% sure I've watched it from beginning to end.
So good.
Oh man, yeah. I could watch it from beginning to end. And right now I have a little miniature one that's in my studio. Actually, I used it as a prop for my Christmas photo shoot set. That's got to go back. And I will, mark my words, I will have a life size one of these days. It's just there's so much money, I can't afford it right now. But to me, it's such a fun little lamp. And I remember one thing, me and my mom, actually this year, my mom brought up something that I never realized. So in the movie, when he pulls out the leg, he goes, "Oh, it's a leg," and then he goes, "Oh, it's a lamp," and then he turns it on, and I'm like, "Wait a minute!" When he pulled out the leg, there was no like light bulb and like no.
Yep.
It's like, and then my mom goes, "So where did that come from?" I'm like, "That's a good fucking question." Like, I mean,
it's a big crate. There's a lot of components to it.
oh yeah, they could have easily stuck it in there and good to go. But
Yeah.
I was like, that is a good point because they never actually bring up the inner components because it lights up on the leg and the top, and you can do that for the one that I have. But I love that prop so much. It's a fun little it's a fucking leg, but it lights up and it's so simple
another one
and
that's
dumb, but it's so great.
And another one that's like a central plot point to the film because there's this like ongoing relationship between the husband and wife about this lamp, and he's so proud that he won this lamp because he finished the damn crossword.
Yeah,
And like
she
the
hated
wife
it
just
so much.
hates it.
That's to
And
me
when
is
it breaks, just the heartbreak in this man's face is just.
And when I eventually get my life size lamp, I'm gonna do just like he did and put it right in my front window and just have it sit up so everybody can see.
On Christmas time, you should.
On
Maybe
Christmas
not
time,
other.
that's right. And hopefully my wife won't break it.
Yep.
But let's move on now. Ryan, what's your number one? I swear to God, if this is not your number one and you didn't bring up this one prop.
Probably my number one would be the Terminator glasses.
Okay. I have a feeling. Okay.
Why? What were you thinking?
Okay, so the prop that I hoped you would bring up is something because special to us because both of ours, one of our favorite movies of all time, and we consider it to be the greatest movie of all time. You forgot to bring up the horse's head in The Godfather.
Why would I fucking? That's not a.
That is an amazing. That is an iconic movie.
It's a literal fucking horse's head. Like it decomposed.
It's such a big part
it's
of
gone.
film history.
Like it's an organic.
It's
It's a piece of organic material that is like.
When I was creating my list, for this episode, that was like either number one or number two on just about every list I looked up as like one of the most sought after props.
It's not
so iconic.
Sought after. They threw it in the trash can and it decomposed. It doesn't exist anymore. Like
that wasn't a real head.
Yes, it was. They went to a dog food factory.
No,
oh my gosh! If we're gonna talk about Godfather trivia, James, like
according to the list I saw, there is an actual prop that they used in the film that people have been trying to buy for decades.
Well, then that is wrong because they went to a dog food factory and they got a real horse's head and they got complaints because of from animal rights actors and shit like that.
So what they had to do. So here's what.
I love that we're talking about this, even though it's not like.
But you guys are both right. So here's what happened. So they bought an actual horse's head, literally from the butcher shop, and they had to bring it in a crate because they wanted to. The scene you see in the film. That where he opens up the sheet and he sees the head. That's actually the first take. But after that, the smell was so bad and the actors were complaining about it so much they had to get rid of the real horse's head and create a composited fake one afterwards. And that's the one James is referring to. But the first scene, they kept that first shot, but they had to use a different head for later shots around the rest of the head. So but the actual first head, the horse's head, yes, they got it from a butcher shop. The horse was already going to die because I guess it was dying from cancer or something like that. So they cut the head off and they used it. And that to me is just, it's such an iconic.
Horses get killed every day for glue, like. But okay,
I'll send you these lists, Ryan. It's like people love the horse's head for some reason.
Okay, well, at any rate, as far as actual physical props made of inorganic material that are like, not fucking pieces of creatures. The Terminator, the glasses the Terminator wears, pretty much impossible to find. I found actually right here.
James has them, or Ryan has them.
Yeah. So these are I got for $18 on Shades of Hollywood, and they're bullshit. They claim to be like realistic replicas, And the first thing I noticed when I got them out is they have these stupid little silver things on the edge, which are obviously not in the movie. So these might look a little bit like him, but like, why would they even? This is ridiculous. This just pisses me off so much. Like, other than that, they look pretty much like him. I'll buy them, sure.
See, I would have said, I would have thought you would have said something like, you know, the Terminator head, or like the arm, or like the chip, because those to me are like the
arm and the
sort
chip.
of-
But no, like we talked about, like my number one vehicle was the
motorcycle.
1991 Harley Davidson Fat Boys, the motorcycle. Guess what's going to be on my weapons list? You know, like my entire, so like you combine all the three, the weapons, non-weapon props, and vehicles. Everything about my sort of lists is going towards, I want to get all this stuff together and drive around the streets of Des Moines and get myself arrested.
When we get to the costume list, number one for you is going to be the leather jacket.
Leather
exactly.
jacket. And I do these technically not count as part of the costume? That's my question. Do these count as a prop or a costume?
It could be either
you'd
one.
have to ask the prop guy at that point.
So, but at any rate,
I'm willing to count it, but
yeah, but
it could go either way. That's for sure.
But that's kind of, yeah, it's just to me, that is the idea of cool. Like if you were to put cool in the dictionary, well, it is in the dictionary, but put cool in the dictionary, there should be a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger in that leather suit with those glasses, with that gun on that motorcycle, flip cocking the gun, chasing down John Connor in the aqueducts of Los Angeles. Like, that is as cool as it gets.
Watch, so, Ryan's gonna wear the whole outfit, and I'll walk up to him. I need your clothes, your boots,
and your motorcycle. I should send you guys that picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger meeting the Pope, and that's what someone captioned it as. I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle. I'm like, that is cool.
So. I mean, the car is bulletproof, so
yeah. That's a really good number one.
The Pope car, the Pope mobile.
Oh, the Pope mobile, yeah.
So I'm just picturing like Arnie like squeezing into the Pope mobile. He's way too big for it, but like the hat on, like the robes on, and he's just like stuck in there. But it's bulletproof if it saves him.
That's true. That's a really great number one, Ryan. I just wanted to give you some crap because I mean, it's me and Ryan's what we consider to be the quintessential best film in film history. And the Horse's Head for me was just big, but Sunglasses, great one. I should have thought that was your number one. I don't know why I didn't. But then again, you brought up a good point. Is I honestly thought of it as a costume, but it could just be a prop on its own.
I'm surprised one of the runners up for Ryan isn't the teddy bear from Die Hard.
Die Hard.
You know how much he talks about Die Hard.
Well, that is a running joke in John McTiernan films, teddy bear. So he has one in Die Hard, and he has another one in The Hunt for Red October. So
that's a good one. All right, James. What is your number one? And I know what it is. That's why I didn't bring it up, but go ahead.
I'm curious to see what you guys think it is.
Okay, so
everyone knows.
I thought it was the ghost trap from Ghostbusters.
You're both close.
Okay.
I'm cheating on this one.
Okay. Don't be cheating.
It's the entire Ghostbusters arsenal, because to me, it's all part and parcel.
Yeah.
Okay.
The proton pack, the neutrino wand, you can't have one without the other. They have to be connected. There's no point in having a particle thrower without a particle accelerator, and neither are useful unless you have a ghost trap to capture the ghost, all of which is completely useless unless you have a detection device. So for me, it's the entire Ghostbusters arsenal. Of course, the proton pack being the most iconic. It is a backpack fixed particle accelerator cyclotron that is fed hydrogen particles from two tubule injectors along the side of the pack. Of course, he's
gonna bring it up.
Oh
wow.
The cyclotron down here, the Roundtable, is where it spins the particles and all that stuff. And if you saw Ghostbusters Afterlife, this entire connect thing comes apart, and there's actual like brilliant little components in there. You see, I'm blanking on her name right now, but you see the granddaughter actually like Phoebe fixing the actual parts of it. And like, of course, like I can't fit this entire goddamn thing in here because it's freaking big. But like, I mean, as a kid, the proton pack was the one thing I wanted the most.
Now,
it's
so
iconic. The particle thrower, or the neutrino wand, of course, is just as integral because it is what you use to create the proton beam. It of course has various different controls to activate, fire the gun, change the properties of the particle stream itself. If the video game was canon, you also have additional components to it where there's, a boson dart gun, there's I can't remember all the components to it, but there were three additional aspects to it, including a miniaturized slime thrower that they added. And one of the actual really cool things is in the video game, they added sort of because in the movies they just sort of like continuously fire the thing, but if you're playing a shooter, you have to reload at some point. So they have like this discharge mechanism to let off the steam because this machine can't run endlessly, kind of thing. So it's a fun little way of adding a recharge mechanism to, or a reload mechanism to the games. And of course, like the Neutrona one's just as iconic. Originally the design was they were actually going to be wrist mounted like wands, like actual wands, retractable wands that had like a tip on it, and you would blast it out of your wrists with both hands, and the pack would actually sit on either the hip or the lower back. But they ended up making it bigger, and of course, like the the community has like it's become such a symbol of Ghostbusters and of like ghost busting that like the community has like gotten like very much behind building props for it, and like there's a huge prop building community for that. And of course, like I said, neither of those things function very well without a trap to contain the ghost. The ghost trap, of course, being a miniaturized containment unit that is, wheeled out. They throw it out, opens up, activated by a foot pedal. Don't look at the trap, Ray. And it's of course sucks in, contains the ghost. Fun little fact is that it actually has a NRADS ionization radiation absorption sort of mechanism within it. Things I've learned reading about this stuff. And of course, none of this is possible without both the PKE meter and the ecto goggles. The ecto goggles being sort of an extension of the PKE meter, where you've got a PKE HUD heads-up display that allows you to actually see the entity. The PKE meter being a sort of what are those wands that they use to find water?
Oh, I can't remember.
The word escaping me, but it was designed to be sort of similar to that. It's actually made out of a Iona SP1 electric shoe polisher, where they took off the shoe polisher mechanism, painted it black, put on a little digital display, and gave it little wands that kind of rise up depending on like the proximity of the ghost, severity of the ghost. It's intended to detect psychokinetic energy, track its spectral particle density, the velocity of the entity, and the electron decay, basically giving you the present speed and strength of the ghost, allowing you to find them, because of course, ghosts can go invisible, ghosts can hide in objects, and it's difficult to find them. So like, to me, it's not just the proton pack. It's part and parcel of an entire sort of like setup. It's you can't have one thing without the other. It's all necessary and all of it iconic. Of course, the proton pack being the thing that people want the most. And like, even though I've got this crummy sort of like plastic one that I got from Spirit Halloween, like all my life, I've wanted like an actual screen accurate one with like the actual doodads and whatnot, most of which you can't buy anymore because everybody's bought them up, or the manufacturers don't exist anymore. But like there's prop builders who actually manufacture fake ones, including like they're like the ribbon cables on it. And like if you saw Ghostbusters Afterlife, there's all kinds of augmentations to it, additional switches, additional wires, and all kinds of cool stuff.
Now, James, I got a quick question. Now, would you consider the proton pack a weapon or a tool?
To me, it is a tool. The whole impetus of the Ghostbusters is that they are supposed to be paranormal investigators and eliminators. They're not supposed to destroy or kill the entity. They are supposed to trap and contain it. So it's sort of like a humane, like the idea being that they're supposed to be pest control, spiritual pest control. And rather than killing the thing, because how do you kill a ghost? The idea being that you contain it and take it away. Now, because of course the particle thrower, even though it does create destruction and whatnot, it doesn't actually harm the ghost. It just wraps itself around the ghost like a lasso, and then you contain it and put it into the larger containment unit.
Yeah,
either in the vehicle or at base.
The only reason I asked is because a lot of times you see them, they capture the ghosts and put them in the box, in the trap and whatnot. The only reason I asked was because, they sort of had to destroy the portal to Gozer by crossing the streams, which is a pretty dangerous. That's kind of a weapon. That's the only reason I asked, because it's kind of a weapon, But that's one of those fun ones we can kind of discuss, because that's why I asked.
I mean, I could beat a person to death with my chair. That doesn't make my chair a weapon. Again, it comes back to intent. The intent of the particle thrower and the proton pack is not to destroy or kill. The
Technically,
purpose is to
in
contain
wrestling
and
video
trap.
games, steel chairs are considered weapons.
Right.
Grab a steel chair.
But sure, but like again, it comes back to intent. Closing the gate was an unforeseen circumstance, and while it did pose a danger to people, the intention wasn't to kill anybody.
Of course.
The purpose was to send Gozer back, to create a reverse particle pull through the gates, basically creating a giant ghost trap and causing all the spiritual energy to be sucked back into this portal and trap them on the other side, by destroying the portal, of course. But like to me, again, it comes back to intent. That's why I kind of like hedge my bets about the wands, because while they can be used as everyday things, there's very much the intent of using them as a weapon to kill or maim or torture, as opposed to like, again, going back to Spider-Man's web shooters, while you can use it to beat up somebody, it's not meant to kill. It's not meant to really harm in the same way. And while there is clearly destructive abilities, like if you watch the hotel scene, they very much destroy that place. And there's certainly, if you turn one of those onto a person, or one application I kept thinking about was zombies, it would surely have destructive capabilities. That's not its intended target. Its intended target is ghosts.
Yeah, that's
and of
fair.
course, they're not trying to destroy ghosts. So I can certainly see why people would call it a weapon. On just about every list I consulted, it was included as a weapon. I don't view it as a weapon because I don't think that they mean it to be a weapon. I think they mean it to be a tool of the trade. Just like, again, if you're trapping an animal humanely in, like you've got raccoons in your chimney or something, you don't go up there with a 22 rifle and shoot them. You put out a trap, and well, you can't. It depends on the community, but
it depends on if you're a Republican or not. Like
in a lot of communities, you can't do that. At least around here, you can't. So like humane traps are made where the animal can crawl in, be trapped, not harmed, released somewhere else. I see this as the same thing. It's intended to trap, contain, and move away from an area where this entity is not supposed to be. Pest control. So
yeah,
fair enough. So let's wrap up now. Well, we're gonna get to my number one, which I think you guys know what it is. I think James probably knows because he's shaking his head like he probably knows. But mine is, of course, and you can't just pick one. It's all one thing. It's just the casing becomes different. I'm talking about Doctor Who's screwdriver.
Okay.
Sonic screwdriver. Okay, yeah.
That was on my list of honorable mentions. I specifically left it off because I had a feeling that would be your number one.
It's my number one.
I didn't want to blow your.
No, you're good. It's every doctor has a different version, except for I think the first two. They have the same screwdriver, if I remember correctly.
The first one didn't have one. The sonic screwdriver came along for the second one, and then was eliminated during the McCoy era.
No, because it was first introduced in the Serial Fury from the Deep, and that's from the first Doctor season in 1968, I believe.
Nerd War.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty positive that's because it was introduced in 1968 because I did my research on it.
The sonic screwdriver was introduced in 1968 in the story The Fury of the Deep, used twice more during the second Doctor's tenure.
Oh, the second Doctor. Yeah, you're right. Okay, my bad. So yeah, I lost that argument. But either way, I mean, it's I knew there was at least, and it was the second and third where they had the same sonic screwdriver. It wasn't until about the fourth that they really wanted to be something different and new. So every doctor had a different screwdriver until you got to the newest season where Eccleston and Tennant actually had the same sonic screwdriver, like the same style. It just got popularized because of David Tennant. But ever since then, there was a new doctor had a different sonic screwdriver to help it added character to them. It went along with what their character was. And one of the things I love about it, because people can't argue that it's a weapon. It's not by any stretch of the imagination. It can't maim, kill, or hurt anybody by any means. But it can what's the word? Not disarm, but what am I trying to say?
It can do things.
It's a weapon disabler. Like it does a shit ton of things, but it can't.
Yeah, it's it's like a Harry Potter wand. It has so many use cases.
But
One of
like
the things
unlike Harry Potter ones, it really can't be used to maim or kill. Like it's really a peaceful.
Again, it comes down to intent. The doctor doesn't
that's
want
the thing,
to maim
is
or
like,
kill.
I don't. Well, I know the doctor personally won't, but that's a good point to bring up. Is that the doctor is just the fact that okay, whatever.
Like
no,
we've seen it blow things up many times. So if he wanted to set off an entire ship with the sonic screwdriver, like the sonic screwdriver is basically a plot device for the writers to be able to get themselves out of situations. In fact, in 1982, they stopped using it because they thought it was a crutch. They wrote it out of the series entirely and brought it back in the movie because they didn't want to keep relying on this thing, because it could be used for any situation to get the doctor out of anything, and it felt like it was lazy writing. So
almost anything. Now it can't go through deadlocks. It can't go through those, and wood it can't mess with either. So those are two big things that like whenever he's stuck in the dungeon in the anniversary special, the wood deadlock, like the wood door and the deadlock, he can't break out of that. So that was one of the cool things I love about it. And you can just do numerous things. And to me, what I love is discussion of that is which one is the most iconic, because that's what
Don't you have one? Don't you have one in your wedding photos? Don't you have one here for us?
I have two. I have David Tennant's and I have Matt Smith's screwdriver still around my house. My daughter actually, it's so precious to me when she mostly plays with Matt Smith's sonic screwdriver. That's her favorite because you press a button and it pops out kind of thing. She loves messing with that. But actually, the one I have David Tennant's one that kind of just sits on my shelf right now. And I really wanted the ones they came out with Matt Smith or David Tennant's sonic screwdriver that could be used as a remote control for your TV. And I always wanted that because you could do the same for a wand where it's like you control your TV with them. And I thought that was really cool. But I mean, no one can, just like you, Ryan, I won't have, now, of course, there's not going to be a weapons one for Doctor Who for my number one. So it's not going to be for that list. But I think if anybody knows me, it's no surprise. I love the prop. It's so iconic, and that's why they brought it back, because fans wanted it to come back when they do the new iteration. And so that to me, it will stand the test of time. It's always new to see it. And that's what you love about it too, is when there's a new doctor, there's a new sonic screwdriver, and there's a new look to the TARDIS. And that's what is always so exciting about the shows. And when this newest doctor, she's in her last season run as a doctor, they're still trying to figure out who they're going to recast as the new version. That's going to be a new one. There's going to be a new Sonic. There's going to be a new look to the TARDIS, and I'm excited to see where that goes.
Fun fact about specifically Tennant's, or well, the 9th, 10th Doctor's sonic screwdriver was that they built the prop, and then the toy manufacturer made a version of it that the movie people thought was actually a better version of the toy of the prop, that they started using the toy in the movie or in the show, and then replaced it with one that was based off of the toy.
Right.
So like the original one you see, they replaced with the toy because the toy was actually better than the real thing.
Yeah. But
I don't know how long they used it for, but I do know that was an anecdote that I've heard many times before.
I heard about that one too. That's a really fun one. But that'll wrap it up for today, folks. Thank you very much for watching or listening, whichever one you were doing. What did you think of our discussion of the most iconic non-weapon movie props in cinema and TV history? Leave your comment section below. Give us your list, and if we forgot any, please jump in the comments, because there were some that James were up in his honorable mentions that completely just escaped my brain. And so
I'm sure there's hundreds that I'm not even thinking of. And
sure, oh yeah, there's a lot of movie props.
Yeah.
So.
No, but I mean, like ones that
sure.
Ones that we could say something about is the impetus of, like, we could talk forever
James Bond's
about
gadgets. We could talk. I mean, not one of us mentioned a single one of James Bond's gadgets, but they're there. So
yeah,
I mean, a lot of those I would kind of classify as weapons specifically, but so though they may show up in other lists, but like we could sit here endlessly, all kinds of gadgets from Star Trek, all kinds of gadgets from Star Wars. Like I said, Indiana Jones has some iconic ones that we only briefly mentioned, but like we need to be able to talk about them. And like I put it down to the 3 that I felt I could actually say something about, as opposed to like the hundreds of different versions of things that are out there that and of course some of the ones that you guys are probably thinking of will probably end up on our weapons list too, because as we've seen with some of these, there's some gray area to what's a prop versus a weapon. What is a prop versus a vehicle. In one case for mine, what is a prop versus a character
Or a costume piece.
or a costume piece?
Because like you can also argue like if it's a prop, you can think of Indiana Jones's hat.
Yeah.
Now the
Yeah.
whip is more of a weapon. My
Oh, the
opinion,
whip.
so
It depends on intent.
that's
Yeah.
a
You
true.
use it
That
to
is
swing
very,
from
very
from
true.
branches. And
That is very true. So yes, everybody jump in the comments, give us your thoughts, and please, we'll probably have this one. Ryan's gonna be editing this one, so we have it as soon as possible, and we'll be bringing to you guys our weapons.
So
one
happy
as
June,
well.
everybody.
No, just
I'm kidding.
nah, he'll get it up before that.
he's kidding, but it's
Also, guys, if you
So-
like our content and you like what we provide, please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you can keep up to date on all the content we bring to you guys in the future. But thank you so much for joining us. Again, I am Josh Williams,
I'm Ryan Murphy
And I'm James Jordan.
and thank you for keeping it real.
with ReelTime.
Good night.